You're now listening to the sound of... Oh, brother. What are you listening to the sound of?
Global espionage.
The sound of global espionage. And it sounds like... nothing. That's exactly what it sounds like. Yeah, you just heard it.
Yeah. I mean, it's espionage on the level of overthrowing the patriarchy.
Oh, well, that global espionage has been going on for a couple hundred years now.
Yeah.
And is doing well. Kind of coming out of the shadows.
Man, boy, is it. Boy, is it.
Boy, is it. Well, I don't think we can. I don't know. Our brains are fried, folks. If it seems like this banter isn't up to our usual standards, it's because I think we'll be forgiven. I hope.
We might be. We might not be. We did just watch a powerful patriarch with a network of global operatives get taken down, and it kind of takes your inner patriarch down a few pegs. That's
yeah.
feel.
When
your inner woman abusing thug.
Yeah, we've all got it. If we could all control thousands of women to create a shadow government,
boy, howdy,
we'd do it. We'd do it. Obviously, that's what we men do, unless we're buffoons that suck at life. Those are kind of the two types of. I guess there's three types of men. There's buffoons that suck at life. There's monstrous patriarchs that want to destroy life. And there's faceless thugs.
Well, don't forget about all the versions of those guys that pretend to be... Actually, I think it's the buffoons. Mm-hmm. They like to pretend to be competent fathers. But we all know they're just buffoons.
Oh, man. I guess we should let people in on the conversation. We're talking today about Black Widow, the latest piece of schlock from Marvel Studios.
Oh, no kidding.
Boy. Okay. Well, Ben, what expectations did you have for this film going into it?
That it would be a dull piece of schlock.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it lived up to those expectations. The trailers weren't very interesting. And also the movie in its marketing and its everything, it felt like an afterthought.
It felt, yeah, I know. And this is not an original thought with us, but it's very true. This movie felt very perfunctory. Like, we can do a sort of a victory lap and collect a few $100 million or whatever. That's not even money now. Well, whatever is money. We can collect some money, whatever constitutes money these days, and get a little feminist cred by doing our second. I guess this is their second. I've been thinking this is their first full-length female action schlock fest, but they did do Captain Marvel.
Right.
Which I will say, this movie, quite a bit better than Captain Marvel.
Wow.
Did you see Captain Marvel?
Never did.
Oh, man, you're missing out.
I know.
You're missing out.
Maybe
Well,
I'll see it sometime.
Scarlett Johansson's a much more appealing performer than Brie Larson. So this movie's got that.
No kidding. Well, I suppose at any time a major picture studio can make a few $100 million on the back of its female star and her brand, that they ought to do that.
Well, you're making an analogy, like as if Scarlett Johansson and Florence Pugh and all of them are actually kind of like subservient, brainwashed Black Widow type individuals.
That's not fair.
Well, I am actually going to argue that even more stringently a little bit later in the podcast.
Oh,
I think it's entirely fair. And I think Scarlett Johansson is a perfect case study. And I think it really affects her performance in this film, actually. But we'll talk about that. So there's a little teaser. I dare say that's better than any of the teasers for Black Widow.
It is.
But I remember, so my expectations for this movie were, Scarlett Johansson's flying through the air and there's like CGI debris. They put her in a green screen harness. That's basically what those trailers told me.
That's right.
Which told me not to be interested. Now, I'm not a CGI hater. I like CGI when it's used well. But boy, am I tired of the Marvel Factory flying through air CGI debris scene, of which we've seen. Let's count them. Can we count them?
I don't know if we can. So did the first Avenger, it didn't really have that.
The original, not Captain America, the first Avenger,
right.
but
that's right.
But the first Avengers movie.
No. I meant Captain America, the first Avenger.
Okay, so we're going chronologically.
We're going all the way back. I don't think it had that.
It probably had a collapsing fortress.
It did, but it was actually a little classier.
Yeah.
You don't have to think it's a good movie to realize that some of the ways that things were done, like the CGI, it was just a little classier.
Hey, the director of that movie made one of the great debris falling through the air climactic movies, which is The Rocketeer.
Yep.
Which I dare say is a much better debris falling through the air.
It's way better.
Although it's got some objectionable content, so you didn't hear that from me, listener. But it's a fun movie. Okay, so that's Captain America, the First Avenger. I don't think Edward Norton's The Hulk has a lot of falling debris.
Oh, man. Still haven't ever seen that, but no falling debris. Thor, not really. Thor movies we can exempt. They just don't really do quite that.
No, they're a little different.
But Winter Soldier's one of the classic, one of the templates for debris falling, CGI debris falling through the air while people fight on airships. Oh, my goodness.
Like, how many fights on airships do we need to see, Marvel?
I don't know. A lot, apparently.
Well, yeah, a lot.
Well, Avengers also.
Avengers has some...
Although that one was fun, but still.
Yeah, I'm not saying that they're all bad. I'm just saying how many...
There's a lot of them.
How many airship fights have we seen? So Avengers, for sure.
Winter Soldier,
for sure. This.
There's got to be something else.
Oh, there's more. Let's see.
Not Civil War.
Not so much. Surely somewhere in the Infinity duology.
Oh, yeah. You have that. Well, you have a scene that's kind of like that of Spider-Man saving the Avengers after Thanos does that thing to the planet. And remember in the last battle in Infinity War,
Spider-Man saving the Avengers.
They're like all flying through the air because Thanos unleashed his power ring, and there's like debris everywhere.
Yes.
Spider-Man's wing. That has it's a very similar thing.
Yes.
It's almost the same thing.
Also, kind of on the B side of that, you have Iron Man, which a great scene actually. You have Iron Man 3 where he saves the people falling from the plane.
Oh well, yeah,
which is an awesome scene, but
it is an awesome scene.
I think it might still count as CGI falling scenes.
Okay, I give you that.
Although, actually, I believe they actually had people with parachutes perform that.
Oh,
but then they CGI'd in a bunch of stuff, so it felt like CGI.
Yeah,
which is one of Marvel's great tricks.
That's pretty great.
What else has there been? I think Captain Marvel has some stuff like that.
I believe it.
I don't know. They I want to say maybe one of the Guardians movies. Those movies certainly have, and those movies are very artful in the action department.
Yeah, but they definitely have some stuff like that.
They definitely have the CGI
the end of
debris.
Guardians 2, maybe.
In the Guardians 2, the ego planet is being destroyed. And end of Guardians 1, like Glenn Close's urban utopia planet is
that's
being destroyed.
That's true.
There's a lot of debris falling through the air.
Into the Spider-Verse, it's like a whole flying debris scene against Kingpin.
Yeah.
Again, very artful and stuff. But
yeah.
Acceptable.
Spider-Man, the latest Tom Holland one, has kind of a debris scene.
Oh, yeah.
It's good. Right. It's fine. But Jake Gyllenhaal comes after him, and Spider-Man has to navigate his way through a thick sea of debris or robots or drones.
That's right.
Or something.
Yeah.
We didn't even name one of the main ones. Sokovia. Or is it Sokovia? No, it's not Sokovia.
Oh, that's
Ultron. Ultron. He
goodness.
literally lifts a giant piece of the earth, and then that is like the ultimate. We didn't even think of the Ultron meant. You're welcome, listener.
All right. Good.
Falling debris scene. That movie, like the whole climactic scene is about, can we stop this giant piece of falling debris. And there's a lot of... Anyway, they really like that. So all of that to say, I saw the trailer for this and I'm like, oh, they have Scarlett Johansson, who, as far as I'm aware, has no superpowers in this universe. Maybe she's got a serum or two, a little bit
I don't think
sub-captain.
So.
No, she's just a well-trained soldier lady.
That's right.
But yet, she, like Iron Man, like Cap, like Hulk, can navigate a giant field of
falling debris.
Yeah.
Pretty cool, too.
And I'm not a stickler for that kind of thing if it's done well. Again, I mean, I like Peter Jackson movies, for crying out loud. I like the barrel scene in that schlocky Hobbit movie. I like that kind of stuff. Just the bigger can be better. But bigger's only better when it's done by somebody who, even as bad of a visionary as Peter Jackson, can sometimes pull off some entertaining bigger is better type stuff.
Oh, of course he can.
But, I mean, at least you can call it bad taste, which is a pun because I think Peter Jackson made a movie called Bad Taste early in his career. But, he's going to have, hey, if Legolas can surf on a shield, he can take down a whole Oliphant. which isn't a good decision. but there's definitely there's a mind at work there.
There is a mind at work there. Oh, man.
But so one thing to say about these movies, the sort of factory mentality, and James Gunn just talked about this, actually. They asked him what the difference was between doing a Guardians movie and doing this DC property that he's doing, Suicide Squad. And he said, the difference is Kevin Feige was always in the editing room, and he said, DC just let me do what I want, but Marvel is a much more of an assembly line. And I think you can really see that in the similarity of the action scenes, especially like they'll get somebody like Gunn, or even, I dare say, the Russo brothers, or, they'll get people who have a little bit of vision and no pun intended again, and they'll let them kind of bring that to the party. But the other thing that they do is hire someone who has no eye or affinity for action. So let's say a Kenneth Branagh or this lady that directed Avengers. They hire indie directors, basically.
They'll wave their magic wand over it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh. And then I don't know how much these people even really have to do with the action scenes. Like the final giant Scarlett Johansson flies through the air action scene in this thing is so generic. Do people know what previs is? Is that a term that we can just...
No, I think you should explain it.
So pre-visualization is something that's done on all your major CGI tentpole movies, computer-generated image, if you're really a noob. And what they'll do is they'll just generate a CGI environment, and then they'll cut together the scene just using blocky, bad CGI. And so you'll have a bunch of CGI guys think, oh, what do we want to have? What's the big climax? And they'll get together and they'll storyboard it. It's kind of like a moving computer-generated storyboard. And because you're going to be spending millions of dollars on these CGI effects, you need to plan them ahead of time. And so you can't just have, some visionary indie director go in and be like, well, I think I'll put my camera there. No, you got to plan it for years and years, which you can still, somebody who's good, who's like just a master special effects person, like a director that's just good at it these days. James Gunn is one.
James Gunn is one. Bryan Singer's pretty good at it.
Bryan Singer, pretty gross dude, but yes, true.
Guy Ritchie.
Yeah. The people like that can still bring personality to it, but it's much harder to bring personality to a big CGI scene because you have to do it over the course of, we're going to plan this like 2 years before the special effects guys finish it. And so what a lot of times you'll see, like in this movie, is there's just this big, long, generic personality-less scene of CGI schlock.
An exploding fortress, explosion here, explosion there.
CGI Scarlett Johansson here. Like literally, probably the director had a couple days with the actresses in front of a green screen, and they just went, and did some reaction shots, and then you plug them in, and that's all the director and that's all the actors brought any personality to bear. And with a kind of a factory line like Marvel, you will actually have Feige and his brain trust supervising the creation of these scenes before a director even comes in. So you really have to be a James Gunn to say, I'm going to exert my will and my personality to make this have some personality, which is why, Ben, you want to tell him what you said about the Russo brothers before we started this podcast?
The Russo. I said that this movie makes you appreciate the Russo brothers.
And then I laughed, I sneered and laughed derisively and said, that tells you everything you need to know.
Because the Russo brothers are on the generic side of competence, let's just say.
Well, their whole style it's a little bit more what they call in film is school, a verite. It's a little bit more documentary. But that's such a...
They're not really. The Bourne films are more like a documentary style, the first three.
Right, but the Russo brothers kind of, they want to evoke a little bit of that, like, especially in Winter Soldier, and then weirdly in the opening of
Civil War,
but then they kind of just abandon it because they're hacks that don't care, in my humble opinion. But
true.
And I will admit that the action scenes in Winter Soldier were pretty fun and felt fresh at the time.
Yep.
But so, yeah, all of that to say, my expectations for this movie were that it was going to be completely generic and probably it was going to hate me. And I think both of those expectations were fulfilled somewhat. It was maybe a little bit more interesting than I was expecting, which we'll talk about.
But yeah, maybe.
I don't know. I mean, this is a weird time. in Marvel, right? History right now. They finished up their big phase. They got into the TV game, and
they're setting up this and that big thing in the TV game.
Right. And I'm not sure what if Jake's good at Jake comes from the world of speculating about sports, which I think is pretty helpful sometimes in speculating about the business side of movies. I'm not sure exactly what purpose this movie serves. I mean, there's a little credit cookie that sets up something at the end, but well, okay, I can think of a couple of things. It sets up Florence Pugh to be the new sort of Scarlett Johansson soldier lady, which is fine. And she's a much more appealing soldier lady than Brie Larson could ever be in terms of keeping women invested and men, because I don't think in their heart of hearts, I'm just going to sexistly stereotype here. I don't think women like Captain Marvel. I don't think anybody likes Brie Larson. She's so hard-edged and nasty and just not an appealing person at all. Although she was before she got woke, actually. I mean, she was probably always woke, but she used to be kind of a fun comedic presence in little indie things, but then she decided she was Captain Marvel. Anyway, you need a warm female presence in these franchises, and Scarlett Johansson was that. Her character's dead, so we're setting up Florence Pugh to be... And Florence Pugh plays Scarlett Johansson's little sister. If you haven't seen the movie, but you have seen the trailers, she's the other main character in this movie, and she's kind of cute. You know, she's a fun little character.
Yeah, she's fun.
Fun little character. How's that for a pat on the head?
Man, so patronizing.
So a big picture, maybe this movie would have felt... I think this movie actually feels more exciting coming now because we had a year of COVID and no Marvel movies.
Yeah, that's probably true.
I kind of feel like it would have been more lost in the shuffle if it had come a year ago.
Yeah, but there's just not... I don't know. There's just not much to it. It doesn't really do anything. Most of its possibilities feel closed off because it happens in between other movie Avengers stories.
Right.
And I don't know, it's not like it... Well, we'll talk about this, but what does it really add to the character of Black Widow? What does it make you care about?
Not a lot that you didn't already get done decently well in the Avengers movies, actually. Right.
Yep.
Like just having her share a little scene that Joss Whedon wrote where she's like, I feel guilty. And, what's his face? Jeremy Renner's like, you shouldn't. Probably more powerful than anything. Not that scene was great in whatever Avengers movie it happened in.
That's the first one.
But better.
I have read in my ledger, which they reference here in this script in a way that is dumb.
Well, let's talk our way through this movie a little bit. Let's talk about the plot and the dramatic structure. And oh boy. But here's the first thing to say. This movie has a fantastic, of credit where credit's due. I think this movie had maybe the best first 10 minutes of any Marvel movie. Yep. I might be willing to... Let me think for a second. Is there a Marvel movie with a better first 10 minutes than this piece of crap?
I don't think so. I can't think of anything.
I knew the movie was going to let me down, but the first 10 minutes were ruling so completely that I didn't care. I was like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to settle back and enjoy this little mini movie because this is a great mini movie. And while I do not trust the movie to go anywhere good with it, I trust this little mini movie to probably be pretty good. And so I'm just going to give myself to the movie for a second. And it's great. It's great. It involves the story of, so you start in this idyllic little Midwest American town. And Natasha is 10 years old, something like that, her little sister, and they're playing. And it evokes kind of suburbia about as well as I've seen a movie do in a while, maybe since the Spielberg days. I mean, I know I'm being what sounds like hyperbolic, but I thought the scene was great. And then, danger invades little suburbia, and our happy family is actually Russian agents or whatever they are.
That's right.
And they have to go on the run, and it's all very tactile and very real and very scary and very emotional. And you've got David Harbour and Rachel Weisz playing the parents, and they're both terrific.
Yep.
And, you've got David Harbour coming home and, trying to play it cool, but Rachel Weisz immediately knows their cover's been blown or whatever it is. The details don't even matter, but it just evokes that kind of paranoia and something dark, invading suburbia kind of feel really well.
Yep.
And it's great. And it's a wonderful, I don't know, anything to add about. It's actually got some good action.
It does. Yeah, it has the best action in the movie as they try to escape in this plane from cop cars, and David Harbour's trying to snipe the cop cars as they accelerate.
It's all very, it's bigger than most movies, but for a Marvel movie, it's all very tactile and
very
to the ground
restrained,
and
very small scale.
Small scale.
Yep.
And therefore, very relatable and exciting. And
yeah, it was pretty great.
Yeah, and then it goes into a cheap but terribly effective. What's the cliche where you take like a pop song and then you have the little girl chorus or whatever, the female chorus sing the pop song, and in this case it's
Entertain Us,
Nirvana, and you have that over a credit sequence that tells the entire story of the Red Room and Natasha being brainwashed, and it's all really effective. Like, it'd be a great beginning for a good movie.
Oh, yeah, it really would. It really would. But after that, it's all downhill.
Fast.
It's downhill fast. The competency of the movie is downhill fast. The details of the plot and the relationships and the reason why things are happening and what's actually happening are all pretty sketchy.
Mm-hmm.
And they really are just sketched in.
Right.
With the barest effort. I don't know. Stuff happens. There's still a Red Room. There's still bad guys controlling it. Natasha thought she killed the guy. She was wrong.
She thought she killed an innocent person when she killed the guy. And we tell the audience that and spend maybe 3 seconds. We don't really lean into the emotion. Like the way a competent movie would do it is, you can imagine the opening scene. Natasha has this tense, difficult decision. She can kill the baddest person that ever lived, but she has to take out this innocent, this guy's daughter or whatever, and she has to make the choice. And is she going to make the choice? And then she says, blow the thing or whatever. You can imagine a good movie really making you feel it. But this movie not only it's not that it tries and fails. It's just, it doesn't really try.
It doesn't really know it doesn't know what to do, actually. Mm-hmm. What the director understood was that first 10 minutes, I think. And then she was just trying to hold it together. And really, the movie goes along and it introduces plot stuff, and then you have the family reuniting, and they're like a fake family because they were all just Russian spies.
Yeah, so I guess
no biological relationship, and you have it. You have the family reunite, and then they go on the big mission together.
Mm-hmm.
It's a clear dramatic structure. It's not bad. It's fun.
No, but it's very perfunctory, and you never don't know exactly where you are in the formula. And you know that ScarJo's going to survive, and you know that none of her ultimately cuddly family are probably going to die. And yeah, there's just not a lot of there, and not a lot of personality. It really, it feels like the director put all of her personality into that opening scene, which is very, a lot of slow motion and just intentionally framed shots and stuff. And then it was different. You go through that wonderful credits sequence, and then suddenly you're in shaky cam, close-ups. It's like the editing style is actually suddenly, we're just grabbing coverage. We're just making sure we have enough footage to tell the generic story.
I would give the director some more credit from time to time. I would say that she absorbed some things about how to film stuff, and she watched the Bourne movies, and she was trying to craft scenes, and at various times she kind of succeeds. But she doesn't ultimately succeed. She's not as good as Paul Greengrass or what's his name, who directed the first one, and Doug Liman. And of course, like we already talked about, the whole movie succumbs visually to this previs just CGI fest.
Generic.
But not just in the final scene, on multiple occasions.
Basically, about halfway through, once you have any action scene, maybe even that's being generous, but
it is being generous.
At least 2/3 of this movie, anytime you go to an action scene, it's just did anyone actually care besides the CGI guys that storyboarded this months ago? There's Scarlett Johansson doesn't actually get to show off that much. I assume she trained, and maybe she didn't. Maybe she's just getting a little long in the tooth for it, and she would rather there be generic car scenes and stuff and explosion scenes where she doesn't have to do kung fu. But we didn't get anything on the level of that stupid not that it's a great scene, but that stupid sexy scene in Iron Man 2 or the famous she breaks the chair scene, her introduction in Avengers. You don't really get the kung fu Scarlett Johansson trained for this equivalent.
There's not, that's not helped by CGI, and it's not helped by the fast editing. I'm going to mimic Jason Bourne editing style, which makes it harder to show off that kind of thing.
Right.
You have to know exactly what you're doing if you're going to use that style to show something off.
Me and
or
Ben
show
have
any setups
talked about
and
this a
payoffs.
million times in both off mic and on mic. Well, I just want to say, though, I'll give credit to where credit is due. The Bourne movies are really good at putting you in the mindset of, I can't tell what's going on and this is crazy, but you can always actually tell what's going on because it's done really well, and the shots are chosen really precisely. And the thing that I always say about the Bourne movies is they influenced a generation of morons to throw the footage in a blender and tell the sound effects guys to do some sounds. That'll be good. And the worst offender is Christopher Nolan, and the worst movie is Batman Begins, which has horrible, boring, and disappointing action scenes.
Oh, man.
But
does it ever?
Anyway, and then like a whole slew of Jason Statham movies and stuff that just
even J.J. Abrams making some garbage scenes in Mission Impossible and Star Trek. He also threw footage in a blender sometimes.
Yeah,
until he stopped more or less doing that.
Yeah, he was at least.
He's just a mimic. I mean,
yeah, he became
He's a high budget mimic.
He competently aped the fact that Star Wars is higher quality once he had to do a couple Star Wars movies. Well,
I mean, I don't know. Otherwise, it really does. This movie just feels stitched together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's clear the director hoped that she could tell an actual story about a fake family becoming a real family. But
right, the conceit is that David Harbour, Rachel Weisz, I never know whether it's Weisz, I guess. Right?
I guess it's really Weisz.
We'll say Weisz for the sake of the podcast. So, the Scarlett Johansson character and the Florence Pugh character, they were the daughters, and Harbour and Weisz were the parents, and they had this little idyllic life, but it was all a lie. And when we get to the central section, the central dramatic portion of the movie, all of our characters are hiding out in a farmhouse, and they're going to litigate, as I like to say, whether there was any family connection. Were we just all playing our part? And the daughters are like, it wasn't a part to us. And, that's the big.
Right.
And the dad's like, I was bored because I was on mission and I had to like hang out with little girls and stuff. And who cares? I wanted to be fighting Captain America. And, I'm trying to decide whether I like that. Like, is there a good version of that plot? Probably there is.
There is a good version of the plot. Okay, this is a really weird pull. But if you've seen The Darjeeling Limited by Wes Anderson,
I have a long time ago.
Then the whole movie is like this brother going to reunite with his brothers or whatever. Or no, that's right. They start out, they're brothers, their dads just died. They're going to find their mom.
Mm-hmm.
I got it wrong. It's been a while. It's been a long time. And they go and they have all this baggage and they find their mom, and she like acts like their mom and puts them to bed. And they have this really kind of touching scene, and you're like not sure entirely what's going on with the mom, but it's kind of sweet. And then in the morning, she's gone off and abandoned them again.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's just gone.
Right.
And it's like, well, that didn't work. And so this movie made me think of something like that. Like, could you have pulled off a version where actually the most you're going to get is something really bittersweet?
Well, let me compare it to another Wes Anderson movie, The Royal Tenenbaums, which has that beautiful moment where Royal Tenenbaum never cared about his family, and he abandoned them, and he basically led them all into ruination. And then he got sick, and he's come back, and he's been pretending to care about them, and then he's lying and saying, "I care about you, I care about you." And then the narrator says something like, "As soon as he told the lie, he thought about it and realized it was true." I'm butchering the scene. Scene. But the idea is you have a dad who we can clearly track throughout the movie, actually was a jerk, actually didn't care, had a selfish reason to then pretend to care, and then came to really care. All of which is an interesting story that can be told. Problem with this movie is, A, it's just not clear, it's just not well written. B, I think it's immoral. I think it's fascinating talking about movies and books and things like that, how often good morality goes with good storytelling. I mean, I think it's just, they're pretty much one-to-one. But it's like, because they never took the time to responsibly sort out the morality, the story is confusing and doesn't make sense. Like, are we saying that David Tennant actually cared?
Harbor,
sorry, not David Tennant. Have I said Tennant already?
Different actor.
Not. Are we saying that David Harbour actually really cared and then was distracted? You know, what story are we telling here? Did Rachel Weisz actually care? And the movie ostensibly has answers to all those questions.
Yeah, but it really doesn't.
But it really doesn't. You never really, from scene to scene, you're like, okay, I know what you're trying to do here, but you never really feel like you know who these characters are. And I think it's a moral problem as much as anything, because the movie doesn't actually know what a dad is, what a mom is, what a daughter is. Like, because it can't actually define those things. And when it tries to define, for example, a father, it feels the need to mock it. It's pretty hard to get a lock on what the movie's even saying, what the dramatic structure actually even is. It's like, do we believe in fathers and therefore it's disappointing when fathers disappoint us?
Right.
Or do we just think the whole idea of fatherhood is a joke and therefore who really cares? The movie wants to have it both ways, which is
what I found is actually, I think the movie does want there to be real families. And I actually found it weird how conservative and patriarchal it was. I mean, maybe this is skipping ahead, but goodness, it's like all the girls really wanted was for their dad to be their real dad and their mom to be their real mom. And they wanted to be able to be normal little girls and grow up and be moms.
Right.
That's actually, I mean, I feel like that's actually a stronger message of the movie than Smash the Evil Patriarchy.
Well, imagine though, if
that's weird.
Well, it's because Marvel wants to make money, which means they need some semblance of a storyline that people can invest in. And the way to make people invest in a story is have universal themes, not themes that are on the margins of human experience, but themes that are central to human experience. I mean, that's, I'll never forget reading an article by James Cameron, or Kenneth Turin's, famously the critic, Los Angeles Times critic, did not like Titanic because it told a generic love story about, and James Cameron said, dude, I had a $200 million ship sinking movie and you wanted me to tell a story on the margins of human experience? No, I want to tell a story that everybody can relate to. Young love. And I think any commercial filmmaker is the same way. Marvel's certainly the same way.
Yep.
They want a story we can all relate to, and they know we all have a longing for family. We all have a longing for dads, for moms, for sisters, for brothers, for that stuff. So they can't really get away from it. But then they constantly undermine themselves by mocking those very ideas. And so a big part of the movie's humor is David Harbour playing the father figure, who in that opening 10 minutes seems like this really great, like, father figure.
Well, which also makes his turning over his little fake daughters to the Red Room a genuine and vile betrayal, right?
Yeah. It feels really devastating.
It makes it that, but the movie never handles it like an actual vile betrayal, like the dad betraying his family and making his girls into prostitutes for the state. It doesn't do that.
Right. Next time we meet him, he's basically a joke.
Yeah.
And he never stops being a joke. Not really. I mean, there's scene after scene of him trying to connect, trying to apologize. And then the joke will always be that, like, the earpiece was turned off, or the character wasn't paying attention, or we're interrupted by an action scene. The movie actually never gives him the dignity of the non-punchline scene like that. And yeah, we don't actually have, the movie wants to trade on the feelings of fatherlessness and father hunger, but then the father figure is a total buffoon. I mean, imagine the emotion you'd get out of this movie if you just did the simple, obvious thing of having David Harbour actually save his daughters at some point.
And maybe die for them.
And maybe die for them.
Well, it's also that he's not weighty enough for the betrayal to count as a real betrayal.
Yeah, you can't even really hate him. You're not allowed to say, we believed so much in you that we now despise you. We're not allowed to feel that.
Yeah, it's not even like what you did was totally evil. It's like, well, what you did was bad and we're all kind of broken. And
right.
You're a buffoon anyway.
It'd be one thing if this movie just said, we hate fathers.
Yeah.
And fathers betray us and fathers are stupid. That's one message, not a good one, but a coherent one.
Yeah.
And then the other message is fathers are great, fathers protect us, fathers save us.
Well, but the thing is that both of those messages would trade off the weight of fathers, right? And
Right.
You can't give fathers too much weight. So you give them all the weight you want in the opening 10 minutes. But then when it comes time to like call him on his moral failures, well, you gesture towards that a little.
Mhm.
But you don't really, because if you do, you're actually propping up the patriarchy, right?
Right.
And I'm not saying this is all conscious decisions by the filmmaker. I'm just saying if you're going to write a story about women creating their own destiny and getting out from under the thumb of men who just want to use them like puppets, then what you don't do is make the most important relationship in the film a father-daughter relationship where the father and his failures and successes define your life.
Mhm.
You just can't do that and be consistent with your own worldview. And it's not even that you think about this consciously as a scriptwriter or as a studio, although maybe some people involved in this movie did. I'm not clear that they're that smart. But I hope that people understand what I'm saying. I'm saying you can't have both in the same universe. Either fathers have all of that meaning and weight, or they don't.
Mhm.
And so if you're going to use the idea of real fatherhood in one scene, you can't let it define the main dramatic tension of the movie in other scenes.
Right.
Because that's not what your movie is about. That's not what Black Widow represents. She represents liberated women who kick butt without needing fathers.
Right. And Captain Marvel is a great counterpoint to this because I think Captain Marvel was much more of a true feminist movie and that fathers were just irrelevant. The one kind of male authority figure is first a liar and then a bad guy and then ultimately a buffoon, which is the Jude Law character. Spoiler, sorry to ruin Captain Marvel for you.
No.
Other than that, we just kind of ignore, I guess Samuel L. Jackson's in there, kind of playing the mentor, but he's kind of goofy in that movie and nothing. It's what I've always said, and I'm sure smarter people than me have said about something like The Simpsons. The Simpsons for 30 years has propped up the notion that fatherhood actually is a thing that is full of weight and dignity. Because why else would it be funny to see Homer Simpson fail at it week after week, year after year?
Uh-huh.
If we as a culture actually believed fathers were just nothing, then
You don't need Homer.
you don't need Homer.
There's nothing to joke about.
There's nothing to joke about. Fathers are just nothing. Who cares? But every time Homer falls on his face or gets hit in the crotch, we laugh. I mean, I'm being hyperbolic here, but you know what I mean. We laugh because, that's not supposed to happen to fathers.
Yeah.
Fathers are actually weighty and dignified.
Yeah.
And so what I was going to say about Captain Marvel is Captain Marvel successfully kind of just skirted the issue, pun fully intended.
Wow.
Pantsed the issue, I
there
should
we
say.
go. That means pulled down the pants. That's not the right verb.
Hey, maybe it is the right verb.
Okay, all right.
Captain Marvel pantsed the issue or skirted the issue or something like that. Also, Captain Marvel, it made money and everything, but people did not like that character. People did not, middle America was not ready to get on board with having their values that thoroughly mocked and belittled. And so a movie like Black Widow has to have its cake and eat it too. And it makes for poor dramatic structure. It makes for poor emotion evoking.
Uh-huh.
And, there's probably a smarter, more subversive way to have your cake and eat it too. Because Hollywood's can be very, someone like Steven Spielberg is very good at having his cake and eating it too. But this movie is not very thoughtful in the way that it attempts to.
No.
It's like, we were mocking fathers last scene, but now we want you to feel the emotion of not having something that we were 2 minutes ago saying is stupid and you shouldn't really even want to have.
But it's still, I think it does still end up feeling like a pro-father movie in some weird way.
Yeah, because it's inescapable. If you're going to deal with it, I think God's set up the universe in such a way that it's pretty hard. It's pretty hard not to.
I mean, it's more like at the end, what you'd have to do is, I don't know, you just have to have.
He'd have to betray them again. Like if David Harbour was the actual villain.
That's right.
Now there's an interesting movie. There's a movie that really hates me.
Yes.
And that maybe I don't think I'd like it, but it would be interesting.
Right. David Harbour betrays them again and they have to kill him or let him die or something.
Yeah, kill your father. Come on, we could all. But guess what? that would feel really hateful. It's fascinating. This movie, they don't even so the bad guy, this boring generic bad guy, it's like a James Bond plot or like not even a James Bond, but one of the ripoffs, if people know like Matt Helm or something like that. This guy is controlling women, and he all but has microchips in their head so that they're like programmed to do his bidding.
Right.
And any feminist movie worth its salt is going to give you the controls fail, the women gain sentience, and then they beat the crap out of him. They kill the crap out of him. But instead, he dies in an explosion. And I think, again, it's the movie saying, you know what? Actually, our audience doesn't want to see the patriarchy that thoroughly dismantled. People like Nathan and Ben buy tickets, and they're going to feel bad if we too strongly say, you're the Ray Winstone character, and then we have a bunch of little girls beat you to death. Like, we don't want to be that subversive, and we understand even giving you the easy feminist thing there would be a little bit too subversive. So we're going to pull back. We're going to do the same plot point,
Right.
But we're not going to just do it. And this movie is a fascinating set of, it's not fascinating enough to actually watch, don't get me wrong. But if you have to watch it for a podcast.
Or if you already did.
Or if you already did, it's a fascinating set of contradictions, which, as Ben's been saying, ultimately come out to kind of a pro-family.
In its own weird and boring way.
In its own weird and boring way.
Okay, well, one other sexual politics note in this movie that's been on my brain. And I just noticed that in both scenes where you have the 2 or 3 scenes where you have that actor who's ScarJo's, what would you call him? He's the dude who finds stuff for her. He gets her a plane. He gets her a house.
He's like
her
Q or her. He's like the guy that's standing in the airplane hangar. Like,
that's
I got
right.
you.
I got you this. You hire me to do a job, and it's clear like they actually have romantic chemistry every time they're on screen. The first time you meet him, he's sleeping in her bed in her trailer out in the wilderness. And you wonder if that means anything. But guess what? The movie is just going to say, let's ignore that. Like, clearly, what that guy would do is he would ask her on a date. That's clearly what he would do. And I don't know. It was just a thing that stuck out because the chemistry between the actors was so noticeable to me. And I didn't it seemed like an obvious thing to pull the trigger on or gesture at, but you can't, of course, because this is in between Avengers movies where this character doesn't exist and then she dies. So.
Right. Yeah, well, it's interesting that they even wanted to, because they did want to gesture at it. Like, they didn't want it to be to amount to anything, but they wanted, I guess maybe the story they were trying to tell is this is the life she can't have, or the thing that she can't allow herself, or because the guy's kind of like, and she's like, nah. She's like, I'm going to shut you down before you even ask. And they wanted, I think that was the point there, but it's a weird point to even have in the movie. Well, as long as we're talking about the sex politics of this movie, let me bring up the other major thing that I've heard some people comment on, but I think it's worth knowing. There's an extended scene that I thought was being played for humor about the fact that their uteruses have been removed. The plot point from Age of Ultron that Black Widow can't have kids because her reproductive organ. It's one of the things they do in the Widow program is they take away their reproductive ability. And famously in Age of Ultron, it was played as part of her tragedy. And then famously, some feminists were mad at that. Like, are you saying the only thing a woman's good for is reproducing, and if she can't do it, then her life has no meaning? Is that what you're saying? And I think maybe even Joss Whedon apologized for it.
He probably did.
But whether he apologized for it or not, they got in trouble. So here we gesture to the same plot point. And then there's this kind of jokey Marvel scene where the women are sort of baiting David Harbour's pathetic father figure by describing in detail the horrible mutilation of their bodies. And then they just keep in the Florence Pugh character, who's kind of, cute, and her outspokenness is kind of her character. There's a better way to phrase that, but you know what I mean? She's brash. She's brash. Like she says what's on her mind. She's one of those kinds of characters.
It's usually that's some form of vulgarity in the first half of the movie. Anyway, just Fine script writing job.
Great script writing job. So anyway, there's
Very
this
clever.
scene where she's just like, and then they cut this open, and then they do this, and then they dice this. And David Harbour's like, stop it. I don't need to know anything.
No need to be so clinical and nasty.
Right. And I don't know. It felt pretty offensive to me. Felt like a wink at the whole Whedon thing. I mean, I guess you could argue there was an element of tragedy to it or something like that. But I'm not sure that wasn't just me bringing the tragedy to it, because I think of that as a tragic thing. The movie, I mean, why do you even include that? It's in poor taste to even.
I don't know. When I watched it, I thought it was trying to give some actual weight, a moment of actual weight, and put this stupid dad back on his heels. And I know that that's part of the comedy, but it did feel like they're in some sense their sincere attempt to say, whatever, these characters were horribly abused. And I don't know. I mean, it is in poor taste either way. And it doesn't, you've got that weird dual message of, I don't know. It's like feminists are going to object that these characters had that happen to them, maybe. Right. But then they're going to object that
we would feel particularly bad about that.
It's just about total control and autonomy. Mm-hmm. But again, the movie, the flavor of the movie is that it actually wants families or something. It's just so weird.
Yeah, this might be one of the more egregious examples of have your cake and eat it too that I can think of in modern Hollywood. They really want you to have the feelings that you would get from a wholesome family reuniting movie. And they really want to mock, belittle, and subvert that at every other turn. And they really want to do both things sincerely. And it's like, you cannot simultaneously celebrate family and tear down the patriarchy. You just can't. Family is based on the patriarchy. It's really weird.
It is weird. It makes the movie feel schizophrenic.
Well, and I hope that people feel the schizophrenia. I feel like Marvel and these kinds of movies have us battered down enough and conditioned enough, many of us, that we just eat our popcorn and think, hey, that was an entertaining scene, or oh, that wasn't as good of a scene. And some sort of reaction to the movie is, were there enough individual moments
that we liked? Yeah.
But you should think actively as you watch this movie and realize the individual moments do not go together. They don't feel like they were even made by the same filmmaker often. And that applies to the action. That applies to the moral fiber of the movie. That applies to some of the performances. Yeah. Like, this is just a series of unconnected moments. Like that first 10 minutes, great little mini movie. Nothing like that. Again, little moments of artistry or ingenuity or whatever, but it's really disconnected. So my suggestion to people is, take these movies seriously. Like, demand that it tell you a story, and then try and think about what that story is. Like give them the benefit of they're thinking human beings. They put some time into this script. What were they trying to say? And then you'll be able to say with us, who knows?
Yeah. Who knows?
But you have to feel the schizophrenia.
Yeah.
Should we talk about anything else about the plot, dramatic structure?
I don't know. I mean, you're still going to come back to what you teased, right, about the themes of the movie?
Yes. We'll talk about the themes some more in a second.
Are you not entertained? No, I'm not.
Oh.
So no, I don't think so.
Let's talk about the characters and the performers in this movie.
Yeah. Sure.
So you got okay. So let me just give my big theory on Scarlett Johansson.
Oh yeah,
I said at the beginning. So this is the thing I teased at the very beginning. I think her career, ironically, is very close to the career of a Black Widow. In this, she has been selected, bred, trained, and used for her sexuality primarily for the last 20 years of her life, or however long she's been acting. And I think it's actually evident in her performance in this movie. So I think, let me see if there's a clear way to explain this. I remember Woody Allen did a movie called Match Point, maybe 10, 15 years ago, maybe even 20 years ago now, in which Scarlett Johansson played the seductress. And she's very sexually provocative in that movie. And I remember reading a review of that movie where the reviewer, I thought, had a very good point. He just said, this is a woman who is not particularly sophisticated, like Scarlett Johansson as a woman and as an actress, as a performer. She's not particularly sophisticated in any of the facets of what she brings to the role, but she's very sophisticated in her seduction. This is a woman who has a highly developed sense of her own sexuality and not a highly developed sense of her emotional center, of her spiritual, of all the different facets of self that you could develop. This is a woman who has a highly developed sense of sexual self and not much else. And the critic said, this is why male filmmakers, old pervs like Woody Allen, love to work with her, because she's young and she's innocent in so many different ways, but not in this one way. And that's Marilyn Monroe. It's kind of what you look for in an actress a lot of times. And you can see that in the first Avengers movie that she appeared in, Iron Man 2, where she really is just the eye candy. I mean, there's not a lot to that character. I think you can see it in the semi-lesbian way that Sofia Coppola shoots her in Lost in Translation, which starts with a shot of her butt, as I recall. Clothed, but still, we linger there for a long time, and it's just, she's sexualized. And I think Scarlett Johansson has been trained, like a Black Widow, over the years to respond in a very warm, sexual way. And I don't even mean that in a dirty way. I just mean like she's flirty. She's very flirty. Mm-hmm. And it's part of her charm in, for example, the Avengers movies, that she can be talking to Robert Downey Jr. or Chris Evans or Mark Ruffalo or whoever, and she can be so warm and alive and responsive in a way, when I say sexual, I don't mean vulgar necessarily, or like she's got body parts hanging out or anything. I just mean, I wouldn't want to be stuck in a room with this woman alone. I wouldn't want her to be my secretary. I wouldn't want her to, because she's very alive and responsive to me as a man in a way that's
not appropriate.
Not appropriate. A woman should have the self-respect and the awareness and the other facets of herself developed enough that she does not give of herself in that way to any man but her husband, ultimately. But Scarlett Johansson gives it to everybody. And what's fascinating about this movie is she's a Black Widow without a target. She's a flirter without someone finally to flirt with. Mm-hmm. And she always comes alive in a scene where she has someone to play off of, and particularly a man. I mean, she's actually good against the bad guy in this movie, but you watch her performance go up and down. It's like when she's by herself, she's pretty boring. She's pretty wooden. But if she has...
When she's with her sister, she seems almost like the side character.
Yeah, exactly. She actually... Scarlett Johansson is like... She's great at responding. I mean, it's actually a very feminine quality, and it's a good feminine quality, and a lot of great actresses have this. I think, unfortunately for her, it was developed sexually primarily to start with. But I think she's become great at just being responsive. The problem is she can't just stand there and hold the screen by herself. And I think it's a byproduct of her bad Black Widow train. I don't know. Does this make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
I'm mixing up my metaphors a little bit here. And maybe
it makes sense. It makes sense.
But I think also she has, because she's in her 30s, the bloom of her youth is starting to go away. She's still a very beautiful woman, obviously. I think other parts of her personality have been more developed, other facets of the Scarlett Johansson self, and certainly the Scarlett Johansson performative self have been more developed. She's not just the sexual creature that she was, for example, in Iron Man 2. And I think she's a little bit embarrassed that she ever let herself be used like she was in Iron Man 2. She's kind of deprecating about that at this point. It's also politically expedient for her to be deprecating about that at this point. Let's not forget that. But so she's a little bit more well-rounded of an individual at this point, but she's still so much better at responding than she is at initiating. And I think part of that's that she's a woman, and part of it's the particular way that Hollywood and that male directors and people have used her has tended to accentuate that. And so I really think she's boring when she's by herself, and I really think she's much better when she's with somebody else, and I think she's really much better when she's with a man. Even the doofus non-boyfriend guy.
Yeah.
Like,
those scenes were much better, more interesting.
You watch, and if you want to know what I mean, like Scarlett Johansson's been trained to flirt. Like that's what directors and people have expected of her. Just watch the warm, loving way that her eyes embrace almost any other character that she has to respond to. She'll look them up and down. She'll kind of smile. She'll be searching their face to find what's magical there. I mean, she's very seductive just in the way that she plays. Not in a way that was like tempting to me. That's not exactly what I mean, but she's just another actress, famous great actress that had this quality was
Ingmar Bergman?
Not Ingmar Bergman. Ingrid Bergman.
Dear.
Yeah. was the male director of Fanny and Alexander. No, Ingrid Bergman, if you watch Casablanca, just watch the way that she caresses Humphrey Bogart's face with her eyes, and even the face of the square-jawed guy that she's stuck with in the movie, whatever his name is.
Right.
She's just so developed in her responsiveness, and it's fascinating. So I think Scarlett Johansson can be a great actress when she's used in a role that allows her to do that well. In a role where she just has to hold the center of the screen, she's oftentimes pretty bad and pretty weird and wooden and just making weird choices with her face. Like, what is she reacting to? Why is she smiling right now? You compare her to a great male movie star like Harrison Ford, who just effortlessly holds the center of the screen. Mm-hmm. He can be by himself. He can be standing in front of a statue and trying to juggle the sand. And it's like, you just want to watch this guy.
Right. Or even, to take a more recent example, like Tom Hiddleston in the Loki show.
Yeah, he's great at that.
He's awesome at that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I said a lot there, but that's my unified theory of ScarJo.
Well, that brings us to what I was joking about when I said, are you not entertained? Which is that this is a movie about being entertained by, I don't know how to say this without being too crass. I mean, ScarJo is what you said. I mean, these Hollywood women are trained to be sexy and beat the crap out of men for the enjoyment of men.
Yeah,
that's what this is. And here's a movie about, breaking the evil hold of the villain over all these sexy young women who beat the crap out of men and assassinate people.
And the movie's designed primarily for 13-year-old boys to go watch women perform for them. It's
absolutely,
it's ridiculous.
Are you not entertained?
Well, and a male director, I think, would know what is attractive, and therefore would probably, if it was his assignment and he was getting paid to do it, be more sophisticated about not. What am I trying to say? Some of the shots that are chosen in this movie, without getting crass, I'm like, a man would have avoided that, because he would have known that lingering too long on that body part is going to be distracting to at least 50% of the audience. But this woman director, I guess, is just thinking it's another scene in the movie.
I didn't really notice. I mean, partly I was trying not to notice.
Yeah, well,
maybe I blocked it out.
I think it's good that you didn't notice, and but
but there it is.
There it is. Like a Rousseau, actually, I think, to take an example, would avoid certain things. But anyway, that's enough said there. Probably.
It makes you wonder how many more times. I mean, how many more times are we going to watch women break the patriarchy for the sake of the entertainment of young males? Probably a lot.
As long as we do this podcast, we'll probably have to review a couple of them a year or something like that. It's pretty tiresome.
Yeah. It just made me think about the difference between comic book reality, literal physical comic books, right? Mm-hmm. Paper and ink, and movie comic book reality. Mm-hmm. And the fact that you can get away with a Black Widow character in the comic books that you cannot capture with a flesh and blood actress.
Yes.
You can create a fictional illustration of a woman who does and says things in a consistent way, has, a nice physique, shall we say, an exaggerated physique, and you can make us believe, reading this comic book, which is probably better not to read, that this woman exists, that she's such and such tough, that she's such and such pretty, that she has whatever quality she has. But when you port them on screen to a real actress who is soft and warm like ScarJo, and then when you think about the reality of what's happening and who the audience is for this movie and for other women who beat up men on the screen, you realize that it's a total fake. That Black Widow comic book character is a total fake.
Yeah.
Could never exist. No women exist like that. No women exist who simply love to dominate men and yet are somewhat wholesome in some way.
Yeah.
There is the utterly perverted dark version of that, but it doesn't look like, it doesn't look like ScarJo being Black Widow.
There might be a woman who had her version of the real Red Room and traded her femininity for killer instincts. But
that's right.
It's always a trade.
It's a trade.
And what this movie wants to tell you is you can have both, which is just so stupid.
Which is what the comic books told us that for years, and I believed it as a kid.
Yeah, I don't think I thought about it much. It was interesting relitigating the Matrix on this podcast because it was like, did I think much one way or another about Trinity the first time I saw that movie? I don't think so. But watching this movie now, I was just struck again, and I think it's one of the reasons why the action scenes are bad. In fact, it's like, if you really look at what they're doing, if you really pay attention to individual shots, they're not running that fast. They're not. The sound effect might be telling you they're punching that hard, but it doesn't look like
they're punching
that would actually hurt that much. This is all really fake. And there's a reason our big climax, but beyond everything we've already said, needed to just be CGI debris. It's the same reason that there was a lot of CGI debris in that last Indiana Jones movie, because Harrison Ford was too old and too slow to just do it. And ScarJo is too much of a woman to just do it. Now, you might argue against me and say, what about the scenes in Iron Man 2 or the famous scene in Avengers? Like, there's ways of mitigating that. There's ways of using her body in a way that kind of makes sense.
There are. There's ways of doing women martial arts things on screen that make some visual sense. And probably, I don't know. You have Gina Carano, who's kind of a gross person, and she's very butch when she's in The Mandalorian and other things, because she's an actual woman MMA fighter.
Right.
And she actually could beat the crap out of me. I know she's very well trained.
Lots of women that could beat the crap.
And so when she does things on screen, you believe it more because there's just things that you can't fake, I guess.
Right.
But when she does things on screen, it's actually even grosser.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know what to say about that. I've said some things before.
Well, the nice thing about Gina Carano is you're like, oh, I wouldn't want to be with that. I mean, honestly, I'm sorry if that's offensive to put it that way, but it's like she actually has traded a little bit of her femininity.
That's right.
In order to have some plausible killer instincts.
Yes.
But the total lie that Black Widow is telling, that you can have this gorgeous babe with a gorgeous swimsuit body, and also, she's a killer. She can do all this stuff.
And she's like sweet and deferential.
Yeah,
she's like, sweet and feminine.
It's the whole package, except for there is no package like that. It does not exist.
And it's a violation of nature to want that package to exist.
Right. And let me ruin the movie for you. If you like these kinds of movies, start to pay attention. Watch the individual shots, because I was watching this time, and you will see how much they are cheating by cutting away, by cutting quickly, by you don't actually see ScarJo do a lot of athletic stuff in this movie. You see CGI avatars do athletic stuff. You see her begin to do something, but if you watch, the scene I'm thinking of is Florence Pugh and ScarJo are running along a rooftop at a certain early action scene, and it's like they're running really slow, actually. And I'm not trying to beat up on women here. I'm just saying, like, their bodies actually weren't made for action, and it's hard to, in a space of a 2-hour, 14-minute movie. At some point, you're going to give it away a little bit in the margins, at least,
Oh, man.
No matter how much CGI.
Oh, man.
And the other thing that I hate about these movies that I wish more people would be more sensitive to, I'm just thinking about our friends, especially our younger friends who just go see a movie like this. And they're like, it wasn't one of Marvel's best or whatever. And I'm like, you do realize you had to watch ScarJo get hit. And I know it's the bad guy and you're supposed to hate the bad guy, but you have to put up with an extended scene of a big, burly bruiser of a man punching her in the face. And that should
It was pretty unpleasant.
That's pretty unpleasant, and I hope it was unpleasant for you, and not just unpleasant like, okay, the bad guy's doing the unpleasant thing, but like it kind of takes you outside of the movie unpleasant. Like, oh, in order to justify my entertainment, I don't know if I really want to watch this. Like it's not fun. It's why, remember that Charlize Theron movie, Atomic Blonde, that I've never seen it. I saw a preview, but it's just like, I don't want to see this actress take the abuse that she would have to take to be a plausible John Wick type action star. Like it's no fun for me. And I never thought about that, as a kid watching The Matrix or something like that. I think God in his mercy has made me more sensitive to things like that. And I think being married and having to live with the weakness of your wife in an understanding way makes you more sensitive to, oh, these are the real things that a woman can do.
Yeah.
And also, by the way, these are the real things that are frightening about a woman, the real things that are potent about a woman, the real things that are intimidating. Like, there's a lot that's really, really strong about a great woman. It just doesn't happen to involve beating up Russian thugs.
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't.
And ScarJo doesn't really get to play actual feminine strength. That's the real lie, is not just that it's showing you false feminine strength, but it could be showing you real feminine strength, and I don't think the movie really gives you much of that. Maybe in the sort of maternal warmth of, what's her face? Rachel Weisz. Maybe 3% of it there.
3% of it there. Yeah, you give it to Rachel Weisz. She knows how to do that stuff.
Yeah, well, I remember falling in love with Rachel Weisz in the original Mummy. Not a great movie, but she played just like a regular lady in that. Back as late as 1999, you could have a movie where the woman's like, I want to go on the adventure, and then Brendan Fraser just like throws her over his shoulder and throws her in the room and locks the door because women can't go on adventures fighting mummies.
Wow. That is so sexist.
Yeah, it's pretty sexist. Would you be better served to watch Stephen Sommers' The Mummy than Black Widow? Yes.
Yep.
I submit to you that you would. Well, let's talk about, we said we were going to talk about the performances. So ScarJo is a character, and we talked about her at length. David Harbour, as I think we've already said.
Yeah.
He's, I love him. I've only seen one season of that stupid show that everybody likes, but he's great. He plays a good, but the movie hired him just to subvert that.
That's right.
After those first 10 minutes, it is just joke after joke after joke where this guy thinks he's going to do the manly thing, and then he didn't. He's a moron.
Even to the end, he doesn't really, he does kind of apologize, but whatever.
Storytelling logic would dictate this guy is going to keep failing and failing and failing until the climax when he pulls it all together, but they don't give him that because they kind of hate men that much. Except they don't. They're trying to split the difference, but we already talked about that. Then you have Rachel Weisz. She's obviously a really good actress, and you were saying she brought some humor or something to... because she is able to play. The movie wants to be meta about itself, even down to having Black Widow's younger sister, quote unquote sister, mock her posing in the Avengers movies and stuff, and Iron Man 2. Right.
And that's not really that funny because the movie is going to keep doing that the whole time.
It's basically 2 hours of ScarJo posing, so calling it out for 30 seconds.
Look, we're posing and it's silly. Haha. Okay,
you
fine.
You were posing when you signed on to the movie.
Whatever. But so the movie wants to play sideways to itself a little. It wants to be a commentary on the whole Black Widow franchise.
Right.
Not franchise, whatever. And it fails. But Rachel Weisz is able to play, what would you say, sideways to herself.
She adds just, that 4% of metatextual sort of...
That's right.
She's commenting a little bit on the performance as she plays
I know what I'm doing. I know what kind of movie this is. I know how silly this plot point sounds. And now I'm still a serious character and I'm in the role, but I also am alerting you that I know that I'm doing that. But I'm doing it in a way that is respectful to the intentions of the badly written role I'm playing.
Well, and the reason I think she can do that is, I think there's two reasons. Number one, she's a really, really good actress. Yeah. Number two, she's British. And I think the British have a great line in that.
I didn't realize she was British.
Yeah, she is. She does an okay American/Russian accent in this.
Huh.
But yeah, Sean Connery playing the first James Bond kind of created this. We're going to play the character, but also comment on the character a little bit. Ian McKellen does it, I think, really well.
Yep.
Sir Patrick Stewart. These guys are all masters. Anyone who's ever done a good job playing a James Bond or a villain in a James Bond movie, he's kind of classically trained. Anthony Hopkins does a good job of this kind of thing in certain roles. Like the Brits, all, they have a culture of really dry humor. And I think your classically trained British actor, it's in his talent stack. He knows how to play the material and wink at the material and not ruin either thing. And I don't know, I couldn't bottle it, couldn't sell it, don't know how to quantify it exactly, but I just know, Ian McKellen can kind of be like, I'm playing a wizard and you really believe me as a wizard, but also, come on, I'm playing a wizard. And Rachel Weisz does that kind of thing.
I'm playing a spy master lady scientist person.
Here's some really boring, stupid Marvel exposition, and I'm going to play it so straight and so sincere, and I'm going to believe it, and I'm going to make the audience care about it, but also
wink at it.
Yeah.
Yep, it's pretty awesome.
Without ever being caught winking. That's the trick. Right. There's nothing campy. It's not like David Harbour just being a buffoon in this movie.
Yeah.
It's,
Yep.
It's just a nice, dry British quality.
She does great.
She does great. And then you have the other main character is Florence Pugh.
Elena?
Indie darling, famous for a horror movie called Midsummer and some other things like that. And I thought she did really well. I thought she was a very likable character. I thought the script did not serve her well.
Nah.
But I would love to, I think what I said to you is it'd be nice to see her in something good.
Like her own movie? Black Widow spin-off movie, Nathan? Is that what you mean?
The
White Widow.
The White Widow. Nice day for a White Widow. Yeah, no.
Spoilers, it looks like she may be in the Hawkeye series.
Yeah, that's the credit cookie. Spoilers.
The Hawkeye series, what a joke.
Gee, you think she's going to murder Hawkeye and just be a bad guy? I think maybe they'll team up if she's in it.
Awesome.
You know what I'm really tired of, by the way? This is apropos of nothing, but Marvel has actually had a good line in this kind of thing, but I'm really tired of we are obviously going to be allies, but we're going to have an action scene where we fight each other for a little while just because that's what the audience wants to see. I mean, I understand when you've got Iron Man and Thor, you have to do that. The audience wants to see it. It doesn't matter. You've got to have those characters be antagonistic it doesn't matter if the script has a good reason. They just need to fight because that's what we paid our money for.
Absolutely. And that was really fun.
But when it's ScarJo and her sister, it's like, let's just get to the part where they're working together. Like, whatever. Who cares?
Yeah.
Is there any other performance? Oh, the bad guy is a complete zero in this movie. He's really uninteresting.
He's really uninteresting. He's
vaguely sort of, it's the most overtly political thing about this movie, as you'd expect. He's a big, broad, kind of Harvey Weinstein looking gentleman, and he's controlling all these women, and he's really proud to be doing it. And he has a very silly giant red digital readout, which constantly has these silly uploading and
oh yeah,
as if your giant red digital readout of all the super spies would just have generic system commands on it. I don't know. That made me laugh. There's not enough to recommend the movie, but there are some funny, campy, stupid things by the end, unintentional laughs by the end.
There are all of them. Well, there's a lot of generic stuff like that.
Yeah, the bad guys. Ray Winstone, wonderful British actor and really good at playing these kinds of heavies, but they just don't give him anything interesting to do.
Nope.
He might be one of the worst Marvel villains, come to think of it. Like he just delivers exposition about, I found a way to use the most, what did he say? This was the most overtly political line. The world's most something.
The world's most abundant natural resource.
Abundant, unnecessary or something. Abundant, unwanted resource. Girls.
That was really silly.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sewing it on with an iron thread there, movie. We went from Iron Man to Iron Thread.
Not that it has anything to say about... I mean, if you want to take this as a commentary on...
Like sex trafficking.
Sex trafficking. That would be the only way. Fine. Okay. So...
Sex trafficking's bad? Thanks, movie.
I just...
If we could just shoot a chemical at sex traffic victims, then they would realize they shouldn't be prostitutes. I mean, that's the other thing is it's such a narrative shortcut to do what this movie does, which is just have pure brainwashing. Like we brainwashed you from an early age and taught you bad things.
And you liked it. That's what the Bourne movies do.
Right.
Over and over again.
Which gives them, they basically repeat that formula 3 or 4 times and it's potent each time because it's a good story. But this movie is just, we literally reprogrammed your brain with pheromones and stuff. And there's a huge... hilariously stupid plot point involving the fact that ScarJo can't hurt the bad guy. Like she can't even punch him or pull a trigger because he exudes this pheromone. And as long as she can smell the pheromone, she's not able to hurt the bad guy. Right. And it is the dumbest. I mean, it's just like, it's Austin Powers level silly. Like what? And she smashes the nerve to her nose. I'm sorry, spoilers, folks, so that she can hurt the bad guy. And then she fixes her nose.
Yeah. Yeah.
And her nose looks great by the end. Like she breaks her own nose and then we don't even have any consequences for the nose breaking.
Yeah, it's pretty gross.
It's really silly. It's really silly. Just the fact that adults could write this stuff and think that and have a reasonable expectation that society would take it seriously. It's a very sad commentary on the stupidity
oh boy
of the idiocy that we live with.
Oh well.
I think that's all the major characters. This movie's weirdly, as many Marvel movies are, it's kind of a small chamber piece among a few characters, but with lots of schlocky action scenes in between the chamber drama.
Lots of nameless goons and nameless widows, and none of whom amount to much of anything.
Well, do you have any notes on the filmmaking, Ben?
I think we already said most of it, Nathan. The first 10 minutes is good. It's like the director was really invested. Mm-hmm. And then the next 2 hours was pretty dull. And just like, I mean, she really did steal from Jason Bourne, but she didn't know how to do what he did with skill. Mm-hmm. What that franchise did with skill. Just give you the feeling. Boots on the ground, stuff coming at you from all directions. You've got to run. You've got to get away. The Jason Bourne movies are good at that. And this director tried her best.
Yeah. Not to be condescending.
I'm sorry, but it's...
Well, and I'm just sorry. It's a bad conceit. Mixing Bourne-style realism, that kind of documentary feel, with women in... black leotard jumpsuits and robot people and all the kind of fantastic stuff. It's a really uneasy mix. Like every time you kind of feel a tug towards, oh yeah, I'm just in a Bourne movie and there's bullets whizzing all around and it's kind of scary and visceral. Then we're going to cut to a robot person and it's going to rip you right out of it. The Russos, for all their failings, probably had the best line of all the Marvel directors in combining, especially in Winter Soldier, and combining that kind of documentary feel with some actual fantastic.
Right.
The Winter Soldier himself was a good, you believed, oh, I could just be watching this on the news, but also he was a completely silly guy in a robot suit, basically.
Right.
So it's possible to do it, but man, this movie really doesn't thread that needle.
Nah.
At all.
No.
It feels like they got an indie director that was good at, making little heartfelt movies of some sort, which is all she is. I don't think she ever did a movie that either one of us probably even heard of before this. Or that anyone, it's not like it won an Oscar, but we haven't heard of it. It's like she did little indie movies.
Yeah, right.
And they got her to do this. And, it feels like one of those movies that has what they like to call a traffic director. Like she directed Traffic. She told the camera people to go over here and ScarJo to do this, but there's not a lot of personality to the filmmaking.
Unfortunately not. I mean, I could see her searching for it.
Yes.
I could see her searching for it action-wise in Bourne and searching for it dramatic-wise in indie films. And doing her best to make it something coherent, but it was foredoomed.
It was indeed. Well, what else is there to say about this movie? I think we've litigated the morality of it pretty thoroughly at this point.
I feel like we have, yeah. I feel like we have. I mean, we didn't talk about I guess technically Ray Winstone was Taskmaster in some sense, but everyone thought Taskmaster was the robot-looking thing.
But it turns out it's a woman.
It turns out it's,
Which is the oldest, lamest trick in the worst movie. I always hate it when it's like, that person won the motorcycle race? He must be amazing. And then he takes off his helmet and his hair comes, and it's a woman. It's a gorgeous woman. It's just always the lamest thing in these movies. And this movie, very ham-fisted. Like, I already knew the twist going in for, I don't remember why, but if I hadn't, I think I would have also still known the twist because they really telegraph it. They're like, whatever happened to Ray Winstone's daughter, I wonder? And then robot lady bursts through the window.
Right.
It ain't subtle.
No.
Oh, speaking of not subtle, just to touch on bad filmmaking again, this movie has our heroes execute the dumbest plan. This really dumb plan where they swap bodies and are wearing masks for no discernible reason that I can tell. Just so the film can.
Okay, I'll give it a little bit of defense. It's because Rachel Weisz is the trusted, lady spy master scientist, and so you dress up ScarJo as Rachel Weisz in order to get her into the bad guy's chamber. Mm-hmm. There you go.
Okay, fair enough.
It's still dumb,
but still, this movie commits one of the cardinal sins, one of my pet peeves, movies that are made for idiots. And that's where you have a big revelation and then after the audience anytime a movie is behind the audience, it's really aggravating. And this movie has a couple scenes where, okay, cool, they were wearing masks. Okay, we get it. Like, enough said. We as an audience see what the plan was. It's taking place. And then this dumb movie for idiots flashes back to show the kindergartners in the audience. Like, all right, what we're going to do is we're going to put masks on and switch places. Oh, you mean like we just saw play out?
We just saw you do?
It's so stupid.
Oh, man. It was trying to be kind of cute or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were imagining they were making like an Ocean's movie or something where it's like, and then the plan will come together and, what's his face, the jerk, won't suspect that we did this. And then, we cut to Brad Pitt, ripping off his mask or whatever. But man, you have to be ahead of your audience in order to make something like that charming.
Instead of behind them.
If you're behind them, if they're like, okay, we got it. And then you're like, let us show you what we did. No, we got it. I mean, to be fair, there were not literal babies, but there were some very young people in this audience. So maybe they needed to have the movie spelled out for them.
Maybe they needed to see Ray Winstone beat the crud out of ScarJo.
Maybe they needed to see our sympathetic second lead begin the movie by stabbing someone and
twisting the knife into her belly.
The knife into her belly.
Yeah, this had some of the most actually disturbing violence in a Marvel movie. I must be wrong, but because there's a lot of violence in a lot of Marvel movies. But
I would say James Gunn is more disturbing because he's a sick, perverse individual. But in terms of just kind of unintentionally disturbing, just like we're just gonna have a stabbing and we're gonna make it more visceral for no particular reason. This movie had a lot of that kind of thing. And it was weirdly calloused, I thought, about, like, for example, our heroes wipe out a whole prison. And we've kind of maybe established that the prison is full of psychopaths and run by sadists.
And maybe that it'll be okay because they're all going indoors, but it's really like they're all going to die, like it's mountains collapsing on this prison.
Yeah, and we're having our heroes shoot people and blow up people, and it's like, come on, movie, I understand. You're an action movie. We want to shoot some people and blow up some people. I get it. I'm not an idiot. But can you just give me 30 seconds of these are the most evil Nazi prison people? And I know even that morality is often, not helpful to watch. But give me some reason to feel okay about this whole prison being wiped out. And I don't always like the way that Hollywood skirts over those kinds of moral issues. Like, oh, the guards are evil. But for them to not even feel the need to address it, that's both lazy and kind of immoral. Like, our heroes we can just wipe out who we want in pursuit of our goal. And we expect the audience to be so lazy and so dumb and so passive and so thoughtless that they're not even going to question us wiping out an entire institution that could very well be full of, we know at least one semi-innocent, likable character got put in that prison.
Yeah. I forgot about that till you mentioned it, but yes, I was thinking the same thing.
Well, and again, you can do the silly thing that the wonderful Ang Lee Hulk movie does, where every time Hulk destroys a plane, we have to see a guy like pop out and his parachute open.
Yeah.
He's okay. It's all right.
Ang Lee's Hulk is kind of charming in that regard. Like very few people actually die in that movie.
It's very charming. They go out of their way to make sure, okay, we know the Hulk's a rage monster, but in this universe, this is a moral universe. And so the gods of this universe, they're just not going to let a bunch of random innocents die, which I appreciate. This movie has any number of scenes. There's another big car chase where the bad guy's car is just ramming cars. And I get irresponsible car collateral damage as a part of Hollywood for, at least since the French Connection in the 70s. But a little lip service to civilians not getting hurt.
Yeah, it's like you go from one kind of perfunctory action sequence to the next, and it feels very much like painting by numbers. Now we put in this one. This one's going to be bigger because it has to be bigger and have more explosions. And again, the scriptwriters, the director, they're just not thinking about the moral element. Mm. They're not thinking about, I don't know, they're just not thinking.
I do. I think like that guy that was shooting his machine gun from the tower at Florence Pugh and then she blows him up with a rocket.
Yeah.
It's like, he was defending the prison. That's his job. At least the Matrix, when they kill those guards, I think we get kind of an intentional perverse thrill out of it. Like, oh, our heroes are borderline psychopath here. Like these people are still plugged in. They deserve to die. This is awesome. I mean, which is evil, but at least there's a decision being made there.
Yeah.
It's not just, our audience won't even think about that. They're just dumb sheep that are eating their popcorn. So we don't have to think about it either. To me, that almost feels more irresponsible. I don't know.
Yeah.
And immoral.
Yeah.
Like, don't just blow up the poor tower guard for a joke and then have Florence Pugh say something quippy. Like, deal with it. At least establish that he's an evil prison guard or something. I don't know. Or show him jumping out of the tower, And would it be contrived? Like, why did he survive the tower jump? Yeah, but, Hollywood's been doing that kind of thing since John Wayne. Oh, this guy jumped out of the 30-foot tower, so I guess we don't have to worry about him. Anyway, this is just a lazy, witless, poorly thought out little cinematic excuse.
Cinematic disaster.
Yeah. Oh, Ben, I don't know. How many Florence Pughs out of...
Hold on. There's got to be Isn't there a MacGuffin or something?
How many red vials of salvation juice or whatever that stuff is?
Do I give this movie?
This movie is so silly, folks. It's so stupid, and it doesn't mean to be. Like, there's a way to kind of be campy about this kind of thing and lean into it, but this movie really expects us to take it seriously when we have these brainwashed super soldiers all doing their, like, brainwashed super soldier dance, and then we're going to throw red smoke in their face, and they're going to be like, what? Oh, like they're waking up from a dream.
Right.
Like, that's the kind of thing. Like, Naked Gun had a plot like that. Like, O.J. Simpson was trying to kill somebody or something. It's really silly. It's really silly. And not intentionally so, I don't think. I think they just think we're that stupid. And maybe we are that stupid, but it's kind of insulting. Anyway, what unit of quality are we going to use for this movie, Ben?
Man, it's so hard. Yeah, I just don't know. I just don't know what unit of quality to use, Nathan.
So you got red salvation vials. You got like weird glowy nightstick fighting things, which featured weirdly at the end of the movie, but I don't remember being set up.
She was always carrying them in her back. That's what looked like swords, but they were not swords. They were always just those sticks, but she didn't use them.
It wasn't like Florence Pugh always uses this nightstick and it's kind of her character's thing, and then she kills Ray Winstone with it and it means something. It's just like, oh yeah, I guess she had that and now she's using it to blow up Ray Winstone.
Yeah, there's no unit of measurement. How many How many? No, okay. I don't have a good one. How many?
We need a bad one, I guess.
How many buffoonish father figures out of 5?
How many buffoonish father figures out of 5 would I give this movie?
0 to 1, maybe 1.
Is it a good, like, if it has 5 out of 5 buffoonish father figures, does that mean it's a good movie?
No, I made it too complicated.
Yeah,
I don't know what it means. I don't even know what it means.
I guess how many red Salvation vials?
How many red marks in your ledger would you give this movie, Nathan?
Well, again, that's kind of a bad thing.
Oh, no. Hold on.
If we hate this movie, we'd give it 5, I would think.
It's too hard. I can't do it.
How many glowy nightsticks, motorcycles? What does this movie have?
Not much. For all its action schlock, there's not much
to hang on to there.
No.
Yeah.
How many? There is that one cool shield, which apparently used to be the Crimson Soldier's shield.
Yes, that's true.
It actually, if anything, that shield it's criminally underused. If you're going to have a cool thing pop up in your movie, you should use it more, but don't bother.
Yep. Well, this is why women shouldn't make action movies, folks.
Yeah.
And I'm not even kidding. Okay, well, I don't know. How many Infinity Stones? I guess we'll just go to the larger. Right. By the way, another corny thing this movie does is it gets us through the whole story, and it's the very last shot of the movie, not the credit cookie, but the last shot before we cut to credits. And they can't even rely on us to be invested enough in Black Widow that we're just going to use Black Widow's music, whatever that is. Instead, we're going to use the Avengers music. Let's just push the button. The sheep will like that. They remember being entertained by that music before. Eat your popcorn, you fat idiots.
All right. How many Infinity Stones out of what?
How many Infinity Stones are there? I don't even know. 5?
I think 5. We should know that. Jake would know.
Jake would know.
Jake does know.
Jake's not here. 5
or 6, maybe. Anyway,
there's 6. I want to say 6.
Okay, I'll give it 1 out of 6. Is that too much though?
You know, it's been since Tenet that I had seen a movie. It was kind of, you know, I wasn't actively bored or hating it. Like it engaged my attention enough to sort of.
Yeah, actually, Tenet is worse in that sense.
Yeah, Tenet had several moments where I was just like, I would rather not be watching this. It's kind
That's right.
This movie was easy on the eyes and emotion and stuff enough, I guess, that like I hated it on an intellectual level, but my heart was just kind of going along. Like Marvel's competent enough.
That's true.
Which is almost worse. I mean, at least Tenet swung for the fences, and some people would say hit a homer, some people would say struck out, but they were trying something. Marvel's competent, you know, they don't just make things that are unwatchable. So I don't know what that does to my Infinity Stone rating. I'm going to say a 5. I'll say 6 out of 6 Infinity Stones for the first 10 minutes.
Okay.
And
I'll go with you there.
I'll say 2 out of 6 Infinity Stones for the first act and a half. And I'm going to say 0 Infinity Stones for the last act and a half, because the ending of this movie was very silly and very lame.
So lame.
And I would honestly, you know, if you have Disney Plus, and don't pay for it, but if you have Disney Plus and they've finally removed the paywall thing and you can just watch it, you might enjoy watching the first 10 minutes of this movie just as a little short film about Black Widow's childhood.
Yeah, no, it's good.
But then you have to turn it off because
it's all downhill.
It
really, really is too.
It's a sharp drop off.
Ugh.
Oh well. We went in expecting it to be bad, and
it was.
But hey, to be fair, we're not just haters, because we both had nice things to say about that first 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm. We did.
I would have loved to see that movie. Like if that was the movie, it was a movie about like little Natasha and like growing up in suburbia. Or even if that was the beginning and then it was like the girls go on the run, and, you know, if they basically just made Hannah. I've never seen Hannah, but I think maybe that's what Hannah's about. I don't know.
Kind of.
Yeah. If they did a actual to the ground. Well, here's a good final question, Ben. Could you fix this movie? Is there a version of Black Widow that would work?
Yeah, but it's a version where, yes, actually, I think that there is. And I think it's a version where you'd have to fix so many different things. You could keep the core family relationship. The dad couldn't be a buffoon. He'd have to be more evil. He'd probably have to die in the end to sacrifice himself if you're going to redeem him.
Mm-hmm.
And the mom, too, actually.
Yeah, I think they're both pretty culpable.
They're both really culpable, and the movie does not hold them to account, actually.
Neither one of them. Maybe Dad, because it mocks him a little bit more, but Mom, we just really just want to say,
Yeah, but even Dad really gets a pass.
Yeah.
He's kind of a lovable buffoon in the end.
Mm-hmm.
And then the girls have to admit on some level that they like the bloodlust. In other words, you have to treat women like moral agents, which this movie does not give them the dignity of doing. And I know it's saying that they're put into slavery for an assassin program from their childhood, but still they're moral agents. In the movie wants to treat them like moral agents, but then not. Anyway, it's selective.
Yeah.
And then you'd have to have a somewhat better plot. The bad guy just stinks.
Mm-hmm.
It's no fun. The stupid Taskmaster drone is boring, at least as conceived.
His fortress in the sky.
His fortress in the sky is stupid.
Yeah.
Yet another fortress in the sky. You'd have to make a lot more of the other widows.
Mm-hmm.
The other widows would actually have to feel a lot more dangerous and interesting.
Yeah.
Which would mean focusing more on a few of them, maybe.
Yeah.
Because what this movie doesn't do is give you the sense that there actually is this big shadow network of women assassins. It just says there is, and here they're coming down to shoot at ScarJo, and here they're in this room together. But it doesn't give you a sense of what they're like. Kind of like how Batman Begins failed to give you the idea of this actual shadow ninja network.
It tells you about it, but you never feel like...
Look, there's Bruce Wayne. He's fighting with these other ninjas in this training sequence. Well, who are these other ninjas? What are their thoughts? Like, what do they actually do in the morning for breakfast? Like, what do they talk about? The movie gives you zero of that. It only gives you Ducard. And that's maybe a dumb analogy, but I feel like I don't know anything about these other Black Widows except that they're victims and that they shoot at ScarJo and that then they're all like a beautiful sisterhood when they're finally set free from the evil oppressor. And that's really boring, and it actually gives them no dignity. If you want to make a movie about them and about ScarJo freeing them or something, then you actually have to show me a little bit more of them somehow or give them some weight. And so this movie, it would take a total rehaul.
Yeah.
But I think you could keep the core family conceit. That's a great conceit.
Yeah, it's good. And you could do all those things deftly. I mean, as you talk, I'm imagining the first, wonderful... Did we talk about this on mic somewhere? The Doug Liman Bourne movie where they activate all the sleeper agents or whatever.
Yeah.
And we just have that wonderful montage where, Clive Owen, what is he, teaching piano or something?
Yeah.
And you have all these different guys be activated and they're all just living their lives. And in the space of maybe 90 seconds with techno music blaring and, we have this whole network of guys that are out there, and it really...
And they've been activated, and they're coming for Jason
They're coming,
Bourne.
they're converging on him, and you've done so much work, and it's so cool.
It was so cool.
Yeah.
It was one of the most fun sequences ever in a movie like that.
Yeah, it's great. It's so exciting. You're just like, oh, this movie's doing this. This is great.
All these guys, they're all going to fight him. Yeah.
And then the movie has each of them show up, and they all have their own little specialty, and,
it's great.
And Clive Owen's a little bit more... dignified than the others. He gets some dialogue, and you could have done something similar, and it would have taken almost no time to do something with the widows that made you feel like this movie was like actually about the widows.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, yeah. So there are ways to actually write this movie and make it cool and interesting, and use the acting power of David Harbour and Rachel Weisz to good effect. But
yeah, I'm realizing. This movie's not really about, maybe many Marvel movies are that, but like this, but weirdly, it's not about its plot, is it? Like the movie cares about the family dynamic, but it doesn't care about the widow stuff. That's just like a thing that they have to do.
That's like tacked on.
And if we can score a few political points and have a villain that everybody will hate, great, but we're not making a movie where...
No, it's only a movie about family reconciliation. That's all that it is.
Yeah.
It's not actually a movie about bringing down the man. It just pretends to be.
Yeah, but in really the most boring way.
the most boring way. Yeah.
Like, come on, movie. Like at least, do the job. It gives you some respect for Black Panther, which, like it or lump it, integrates its themes.
Right.
Like Black Panther is a movie about what it's about.
Yes.
Like the director has something to say about race and about all this stuff. And
very true.
And you may not agree with it. I don't think that I do. But, you know, the movie is thematically unified and saying something. And this movie it doesn't seem to feel the need to do that. It thinks like, oh, we can gesture at that and people will be so grateful that we're gesturing at that we won't even have to, you know, here's the bad guy. He looks like Harvey Weinstein. We haven't done anything to motivate him or set him up or even say what he's after or anything. But if we just give you that guy, you'll hate him so much that you'll really be invested in that.
I mean, this movie isn't even doing the feminist work of Wonder Woman, where you have a maid character, you know, say that she wants to be liberated like Wonder Woman, right?
Right.
It's not even doing that much work. It doesn't do any work to extend. I don't know. It just fakes it.
Yeah, it's really. I mean, I've said this multiple times now, but it's really insulting. Like, at least give me the dignity of thinking I'm smart enough that you need to subvert me with your feminist propaganda, and then do some good feminist propaganda. Like, don't just gesture lazily at these things and think that means anything for anybody. You haven't done the work of a good propagandist. You haven't done the work of a good storyteller. You just haven't done the work. You're just being lazy.
Yeah.
And that's not cool.
It's not cool.
And ScarJo, you're an executive producer on this, and presumably you had some say. So I know you're a big listener of this podcast. I'm sorry to have to say it, but for shame. You should have done better.
You should have done better.
You should have said Scar no to this version of the script.
Yeah.
Go, do a rewrite. Whatever happened to rewrites, you know? I mean, how many times you go rewrite this? Like, integrate the bad guy. Make the plot, you know, make those widows mean something. Like, I don't know. I guess they made their money.
Oh, I'm sure they did.
Although it had a really big decline the second weekend, and people are worried about that.
Oh, good.
Arguing about whether Disney Plus did it or, you know, I don't think it was. I think there wasn't as much demand for this movie because it's not a story that really needs to be told, that just begs to be told. And also, it's just not the kind of movie that's going to inspire a lot of repeat business or a lot of like, hey, I know you don't usually see Marvel movies, but you should go see this one because it's really good.
Yep. You
know, that's a Black Panther or an Iron Man or something or an Avengers. They get that kind of business. But
right.
This movie was only made for the people who already bought their ticket before the movie came out. It wasn't made to reach anyone else.
Yep.
Okay. Well, we've spent enough breath on Black Widow.
It was interesting to talk about.
Yeah, it was much more fun to talk about than it was
to watch.
Yep.
True.
So,
true.
Hooray.
Yay.
Will there be a Black Widow 2? There can't be, right?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think
One hopes not.
Black Widow 2 Resurgence. What would be the little thing like that?
Black Widow 2.
No, it wouldn't even be 2. These days they just do Black Widow :
oh, right.
Whatever. Black Widow 2 Retribution. Black Widow 2.
Black Widow. I don't know. I don't even know.
Me neither. But I do know you can go to patreon.com/Sanity at the Movies. Support this podcast. Help us continue talking about the Black Widows and the Spider-Men and all the things that you want us to talk about. Patreon.com/Sanity at the Movies. You can also hear us read the script for Star Wars Duel of the Fates, the rejected Star Wars script. You can hear me and Jake talk plenty about Clone Wars. You can hear our Loki reviews. There's, I dare say, many, many hours of quality infotainment.
Oh, yeah.
Behind that paywall.
They are there.
They are there. So, I don't know. Sign up for a month, listen to it, and then cancel. I mean, I can do nothing to stop you. I'll activate my sleeper agent, my beautiful woman assassin, to come after you if you do that. I guess I can do that.
But it'll be too late because they'll already be signed on to a recurring donation. So
that's how I get you. The real Ray Winstone.
That's right.
Is me.
Wow.
Okay. All right. That's enough. Maybe Jake will eventually watch it and have some thoughts. But
maybe.
He was out of town this week. I guess we never said why he wasn't here, but he was at a camp.
Yep. Speaking at the chapel.
Yeah,
camp chapel.
Basically being the chaplain for a camp. So he was arguably a more noble use of his time than hanging back with us and watching Black Widow.
Arguably, yes.
All right. Patreon.com/Sanity at the Movies. And be sure to review this show on your podcast app of choice. I always forget to say this boilerplate. And, subscribe, share, stuff like that. It helps us make the show. So share it with your friend. Your friend probably is like a dumb sheeple that likes Black Widow. Send it to him or her. Somehow I think boys are more likely to be tricked by this one because men are dumb. They're buffoons. I don't know. Maybe little girls are actually enticed by this crap, but what a sad society that is. Okay, until next time.
Pain only makes you stronger. Was that the line, or was it suffering only makes you stronger?
I don't know. Is there anything else? Any other memorable lines?
It still fits. I could say that one.
It still fits.
It still fits.